Hey, Steve, how you doing?
Doing well. How about you?
Hey, I don't know if you heard or not, Gonzaga's going to Pac-12. Some random no-name journalist reported that a week ago, and nobody believed him. But, yeah, that's what's going on today.
Actually, when I gave you attribution on the show last week as that random no-name journalist, I thought it seemed right. Is it? I'm going to maybe guess a little bit here, but is Gonzaga going to get a full share in the Pac-12 when this is all said and done, like a football school?
That's what I was told when I initially, reported that back on September 23rd. Certainly, things can change. They still have to get another football member. At that time they were just bringing Utah State on board. So from the sources that correctly told me Gonzaga was going to the Pac-12, the understanding was, yes, they would receive a full share. I don't know if that has officially been determined yet. And to be honest, Steve, I don't think it will be until they get in the 8th football member and can sit down and hash all this out. And also, look, they still got to go to market. They got to get a media rights deal with the new configuration. But I think it's a great move for the Pac-12. I know you don't want to talk about basketball, but certainly, with what they were left with and what, their options that they realistically had for the Pac-12 all smelled like bad fish. So being able to get somebody like Gonzaga into that league for a basketball partnership is huge for the Pac-12. And, kind of like that Neil Young song, to paraphrase, realignment never sleeps.
Well, I'm going to my 43rd season announcing Penn State basketball, so I'll talk hoops anytime. That's not a problem.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. Now, before I get back to the Pac-12, UTEP is going to go to, it looks like, the Mountain West for them. What kind of fit is that for the Mountain West to then step in and be a replacement team?
Well, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They have not been that great in football. They are located in the state of Texas, which opens up that state recruiting-wise. They are, your hoops. They've been better than most in basketball. Mm-hmm. They've had some good success there. Basically at this point, Steve, we've gone past the point of the Big Ten adding the 4 Pac-12 schools, and we're past the point of the SEC going with Texas and OU. Right. Now, basically, it's the trickle-down effect, and now these conferences further down the totem pole are basically in a survival mode.
Yep.
And they're just they're grabbing warm bodies so they can keep their membership above 8 to stay an NCAA FBS conference and qualify for the college football playoff. That's what they're doing. So, all things considered, getting UTEP is not bad for the Mountain West. It makes sense from a geography standpoint. I also reported last week that they are having conversations, the Mountain West, with Northern Illinois and Toledo out of the MAC.
Yeah.
Yes, folks, they could destroy MACtion for us, which I know a lot of your listeners love. Why in the world are they doing that? People are wondering. Well, those guys would be football-only members. And what that would do is, I talked a little bit earlier about the Pac-12 and their media rights deals. The Mountain West and when they go back to the negotiating table for their media rights deal, they potentially could have a conference, the only conference in America, hang the banner, that spans 5 time zones.
Oh, yeah.
The 4 in the continental United States and Hawaii.
Yep.
So for a network, that adds a lot of value. When you're able to put games on from noon to midnight, now they're not going to make anywhere close to power conference money. But if they can just increase, they're only at $5 million right now. So potentially maybe they can increase that up to $7 million per team, $8 million, maybe $10 million. Who knows? But any kind of increase in today's market is huge. And so that's why, Steve, they're looking to dip into the MAC and potentially, it's not going to destroy MACtion. MACtion will always survive. As I've said, and this is a compliment, when the world ends, only 2 things will survive, and that is cockroaches and the MAC. So they'll be fine. They just may lose 2 of their members.
All right. So let's have, with the audience, let's have a little fun in geography. El Paso is actually closer to Los Angeles than Houston, even though they're in the same state with Houston. And Toledo is actually closer to London than Hawaii. So other than that,
I saw the Toledo Beat guys reporting that. Oh my God, dude, they're not playing every year at Hawaii, okay?
Right. Yeah.
So when the Hawaii Bowl has an invitation, Toledo can't go to the Hawaii Bowl because it's too far. I mean, give me a break.
Right.
I mean, I understand the regional and the beauty of the MAC is that everybody is right there. It's an old school conference, and I love that.
Yeah.
And by the way, I hate conference realignment. For what it's done for college athletics. But yeah, you're right. You can make all these comparisons about you're closer to Africa than you are to Hawaii. I mean, some of these schools may be closer to the moon than they are to some of their conference members at this point.
All right, so now let me throw out an interesting chip, and that is Texas State, which has been FBS for 12, 13 years now. Right, in this lower level realignment, what kind of chip potentially is Texas State in terms of people wanting them?
Well, going back to the desperate times segment of realignment, that's basically where we're at. The Mountain West needs one more. They talked to Texas State. Texas State would rather go to the Pac-12. So that ain't happening. Sorry, Bobcats. Pac-12 does not have any interest in Texas State. So Texas State, has a decision. They can go to the Mountain West, or they can remain in the Sun Belt. And then if there is movement with the American, maybe some teams leave the American, maybe to re-engage with the Pac-12, or potentially if the American loses school, now we're getting several years down the road. The American loses schools to the ACC. If the ACC loses schools, then maybe Texas State has their sights on getting to the American or something like that. Mm-hmm. But they're not going to the Pac-12. I think it'd be a good fit for both Texas State and the Mountain West. You establish another brand in Texas. Yep. Gives you 2 schools in Texas. They haven't had a school in Texas since TCU back in 2011. But yeah, that's kind of the next. If you're kind of playing along at home, that's kind of the next one to keep your eye on. Is does Texas State go to the Mountain West? And if not, then Mountain West still has to come up with one more full member.
So then for the Pac-12, which needs to come up with one more, give me a couple of candidates.
So I'm not reporting this, but my opinion is I think the Pac-12 takes a breath. They've got Gonzaga in, and I think they take a couple of months and they kind of reevaluate everything, and I think they make another run at the schools in the American.
Okay, got it.
Because Steve, I don't think there's anything else out there that they can. Well, I mean, look, if they want to go at Sacramento State or Montana State or North Dakota State or somebody like that doesn't make a lot of sense. You just brought on Gonzaga. The question is, can they get enough money out of their media deal to convince those teams to leave the American? Because those teams from the American, it's a lateral move to the Pac-12. Mm-hmm. You're not a power conference. Right. So if they're not making more money to, take on all that additional travel, it's not going to make sense. But that's what I think. That's what I think will happen. That's my opinion, not reporting, but that's my opinion on what I think the Pac-12 ultimately does. But of course, if I confirm it and I know it's happening, I will happily tweet it and then watch everybody tell me I'm wrong.
Right. I know. You seem to be right about a lot of stuff. So for all the people who want to say I think he's wrong. No, he's right.
Well, it's funny when somebody doesn't report something, then it's okay. We need to debunk this report.
Right.
Look, I get beat on stories all the time. I'm fine with that. Yeah. But anyway, sorry.
Right. No, it's fine. Which now gets me to the national meeting, SEC, Big Ten. They mentioned scheduling or whatever, and we all know the SEC has 8 conference games, the Big Ten has 9. But in the end, is this an SEC Big Ten power play on getting as many as 4 automatic bids for each conference in the college football playoff? I mean, is that a possibility with this?
Well, I think it's to get everybody together and just kind of have these discussions face to face and decide what exactly they want going forward. What exactly do they want? I know Tony Petitti's a big proponent of 4 automatic bids for those 2 conferences. Obviously, the other 7 conferences disagree, but guess what? The other 7 conferences don't matter. That's just the reality of it.
Yep.
As far as scheduling agreements, I think that's something that would be another baby step, but a step towards we're going to get to some point down the road where the SEC and the Big Ten kind of take their ball and they go play their own game. They do their own playoff. They do their own season. They do it's NFL light, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't think necessarily, Steve, they want to do that, but if they can't get what they want, then that's the hammer that they can always threaten. So, all the projections right now my projections at Action Network for the playoff and for all the bowl games, I think I have 7 from the Big Ten and from the SEC. So basically almost 8, but they're not automatic. Those are teams that I feel are going to be up there. If there's ever a year where the 3rd and 4th team from those power leagues, have 4 losses, I don't think they should be guaranteed a spot in the playoff. They disagree. And also, I think, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? What comes first is the 4 automatic bids guaranteed before you do the scheduling agreement.
That's right.
Because that way you're not concerned if you suffer some more losses, because basically if I'm in the top 4 in the Big Ten, I'm guaranteed a spot in the playoff, whether I'm 10-2 or whether I'm 8-4. I don't think anything concrete is going to come out of this, any kind of announcement or agreement. I just think it's another step in talking and seeing what they want to do. Because keep in mind, all of the commissioners will not determine the format of the playoff starting in 2026 until after this season is completed.
That's right.
So they can decide what they want to do. They can float the trial balloon. I'm sure a number of people will report it after the meeting to get, get the finger up in the air and see which way the wind's blowing on the reaction. But no matter what they discuss, won't officially be announced after that meeting. But obviously, it'll give us kind of a hint of what they're thinking about in the future. And you're right, real quick, about what you said about the SEC. I don't think the Big Ten is going to be on board until the SEC goes to 9 games.
That's right.
Within their own conference, which I think that will happen once ESPN will give the SEC the money they feel they deserve by adding another conference game.
Right, exactly. ESPN will give them money for more inventory. Simple as that. And I agree with you completely. My opinion is the same as yours, that, look, they want to get the 4 automatics for each conference. That's a far greater priority, and then the scheduling part comes after that. What do you think of the opening month of the season so far? What has struck you?
What struck me is I felt before the season, I said this, and I'm probably going to be wrong, but we'll see. I said the Big Ten and SEC champ would both have 2 losses. We'll see if that happens. Georgia proved they're human. Basically right now, everybody but Texas has looked like beatable. There's only what's funny, there's only 4 schools right now that have not trailed in a game this season. Real quick, you know who they are?
4 schools that haven't.
One from the Big Ten.
4 schools haven't trailed in a game this season. Ohio State.
Wrong.
Wow.
Indiana.
Oh,
Akron
right.
led them 3-0.
That's right. That's right. Indiana has not trailed all season.
Indiana, the mighty Hoosiers. Indiana, Texas, Tennessee, and Army. How about that?
Wow.
So I guess my takeaway is I don't think there's really been a dominant team yet. I know Texas has looked really good. I'm not sold on them yet. Still think Michigan's an 8-win team. I think it's, pretty telling. The Big Ten came out and changed the rules mid-season when they botched the onside kick, or Michigan could have lost that game.
Yep.
You know what? I'm not just sucking up to the home crowd here, but my God, Penn State looks like a totally different team on offense.
Yeah.
With Andy as offensive coordinator. And, this is, yes, Penn State fans, I'll die on this hill. This is the year you finally make the playoffs. They had to expand it, but I feel good for you this year.
Yeah.
But no, what Franklin's done there, he's got him, going in the right direction. They look really good. Some people that I value their opinion a lot, that are a lot smarter than me, they actually like Penn State as a good value play to win the Big Ten.
In the end,
I can't disagree with that.
Yeah, in the end, how interested are you going to see? I know it's a once a week deal, but the reality of traveling back and forth yet hasn't set in for anybody. I know Washington just did it at Rutgers. How interested are you to see if there's an attrition rate in November for the West Coast teams once they do have to start traveling east and then going back?
It's funny. If they win, everyone's going to say it's not that big a deal. If they lose, everyone's going to blame the travel. I don't really think it's going to be an impact. I forgot. It was Lincoln Riley who said, teams do this in the NFL all the time. Why is it such a big deal for college kids?
Right.
And I kind of agree with that. They're not student athletes anymore. They're players. They're getting paid. They do go to classes, allegedly. They do have other responsibilities, but bottom line, they're getting treated as well as the professionals. Yeah. They're chartered flights. They're not sitting in we don't see them sitting in the Delta, terminal A2 waiting for the plane to get there. So Steve, I really don't think it's going to matter because the schedules are made out to give teams the travel a break. I know Miami's playing at Cal this week.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm already trying to get a WOWY versus Coke T-shirt from that game. I talked to Miami. They're going out a day early, Thursday, and they're not coming back until they're not leaving until Sunday. They're not even going to do a red eye. They're just going to sleep in, get up Sunday, come back. They're off the next week. So also the conferences have done a good job. Teams that are traveling cross country to give them an extra day, give them an off week, to give them some extra time.
Yeah.
Kind of similar when teams go play at Hawaii or when teams go play at Africa.
Right. See, I completely agree with that. I've been telling everybody when I go out to speak, I said, to be honest with you, to me, you have to do it the right way. I said, but it's no big deal. Penn State, when they go to USC next week, is going Thursday as well. So,
Yeah, they'll figure it out. You adjust.
Yeah. So, always a pleasure. You make this boom, it goes like that. Thank you so much for the time, as always, Brett. I can't wait to talk with you again.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Thanks for putting up with me. Take care, buddy.
Putting up with you. You're great. Thanks, Brett.
Great to be with you, Steve, as always.
Let's start with Saturday night, 21-7. What stuck out to you about that game on Saturday night?
Well, a couple things. One, let's start with the line play. Both sides of the ball, I thought, was exceptional for Penn State. And, we just, as you know, we just finished the weekly press conference with James Franklin, and that's what I asked him about the offensive line. And I think the offensive line has played better than anybody expected. James Franklin singled out Nick Singleton, yeah, for sure. Nick Dawkins, that was going to happen once. Nick Dawkins for how well he's played at center. I think the defensive line, especially I think people sometimes overlook the interior of the defensive line. Zane Durant, Devon J. Thomas, Keziah Izzard, Hakeem Beamon, down the list. I know I'm missing a few, but the bottom line is they played really well Saturday night against the team that prides itself on being very physical. So that's where I would start. And then, as I wrote for a column for today's print edition, the physicality of running backs Nick Singleton and Katron Allen is something to behold. Both of them welcome contact. Sometimes they don't avoid it, they welcome it. And what Nick Singleton did on that 3rd and 7 play, when he pancaked the defensive end, then caught a pass from Drew Aller and ran over a defensive back to get the first down, was something that I'll remember for a long time.
That was, you need to play guys that play winning football, and that's a winning football play by Singleton that sets the tone, I think, for an entire sideline when you see somebody like that do that.
No question about it. Drew Aller said the same thing about the two of them, Nick and Katron, about how it impacts the rest of the offense, and I don't think there's any question about that. The two of them are all about gaining every inch that they can, and they don't care who's in their way. If you're going to try to tackle me, I'm going to try to run you over. And you see it all the time with these guys. I mean, I know, of course I know more about Nick's background than Katron's, but I could say this. Nick trains at a facility here in Berks County. He's trained there since he was in middle school, and those people continue to rave about him in the weight room, and you've seen it at Penn State as well. Just one of the strongest guys, pound for pound, I think, in college football.
And I think what they've done here is the model that a lot of people want to have. Yeah, it's organic, but when the game is over, or even when the season's over, the number of touches each one has is so close that it's keeping the wear and tear as much as possible off their bodies.
That, and I don't think that is an accident whatsoever, that their carries are that close. I think it's also to keep both of them happy. I do. And I think, and that's fine. Because they're two terrific running backs, and one shouldn't be slighted over the other. And but it does. They're never worn out at the end of games, and if you split the carries evenly, they're both pretty happy guys. So, I agree with that.
Any quarterback will tell you that the last thing they want is pressure up the middle and in their face. What have you seen in the progress of Zane Durant at that defensive tackle spot that's allowed him to play that way?
Well, it's just quickness. I mean, he's not the biggest defensive tackle in college football by far. And to say that standing in front of him after the game at 6'1", 286 pounds, it's something to say, but he's not. But his quickness is something that is exceptional. You and I watched him and know how good he's been, since he was a freshman. You could see it, and it's just he's getting better and better and better. And you saw that Saturday night, that there were times he just exploded past the center or the guard or both, to get into the backfield. And then when Tom Allen puts Abdul Carter in that middle of the line, in passing situations, then it's like pick your poison. Who do you want to block? Abdul Carter or Zane Durant? And sometimes Illinois couldn't do either.
What was your thoughts on the play of Drew Aller in the game?
I don't think he was as sharp as he was against Kent State. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean I think he played well. He didn't make any mistakes. I think there was a stretch there that I can't remember when it was, but when he missed Khalil Dinkins on the seam route, and then he missed Trey Wallace to the sideline. He threw it harder. He didn't put any air under either pass. But overall, I thought he played solid. He had a solid game, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has a big game on Saturday against the very vulnerable UCLA pass defense.
All right. Illinois scored in the opening drive. of the game. Then after that, the yardage was minimal for them. They did have a 34-yard run. They had a 36-yard, flip play to McRae. They missed a field goal, but that was it. It was a low possession game. Only 8 possessions for Illinois in the game. What was your thoughts on the adjustments that Penn State made defensively after the opening drive?
Well, I think, and it's, James Franklin mentioned it after the game. The turning point of the game was Illinois has first and goal at 2 late in the second quarter, and because of the defense and because of the student section, the noise from the student section, Illinois doesn't go forward, they go backwards, and 20-some yards, 25 yards or whatever it was, and misses a 45-yard field goal. And to me, that just turned everything around. And then, Penn State scores to go ahead in the third quarter. And honestly, I mean, Illinois never crossed midfield until the last minute in the second half, until the last minute of the game. Sometimes after watching hundreds of games, I kind of pick up little things. And Illinois, as you know, Steve, they want it to be a one-score game in the fourth quarter. Yep. They want to play field position. They have a plan offensively and defensively. Well, once it got to 21-7, they had to throw that out the window, and that's where Penn State started just hammering Luke Altmaier and rushing him. I think they have 4 sacks in the fourth quarter. So you saw a change. But honestly, it was stopping the run defensively, making Illinois one-armed, if you will. That changed everything. And really, I never thought after that first and goal from the 2 disintegrated, I never thought Illinois was going to score.
Right, but that's why in the fourth quarter on the broadcast, I just said, look, I said, let's be honest here. Penn State gets one more score of any kind. I said, Illinois, there are not enough possessions left in the game for them to send it to overtime. I mean, you just could tell that they're just, because, possessions, the number of possessions are not talked about enough. And you could just tell with the clock and the way the game was playing, they didn't have enough possessions to do anything with it. Which then brings us.
And they weren't getting any push at all.
No,
like to run the ball, they couldn't run the ball whatsoever. I hate to sound like this, but scores are often deceiving. Yeah. And I'm not putting this on one young man, but if Xander Sahadak makes 2 40-yard field goals, and then Penn State also went for it on fourth down instead of trying, I forget what the yards would have been on the field goal. So let's say those 3 field goals are made. It's 30-7, and you're like, "Oh, that's about right." They dominated the game after the first possession. Yeah, that's about right. So I saw people figuratively gnashing their teeth on social media after the game, and I'm like, well, they won by 2 touchdowns, and Illinois was undefeated and was ranked, and I'll bet you they're going to win 8 or 9 games this year. And so can Penn State be better? Oh yeah, they can be better with the field goal kicking, and they can also be better with the penalties, as James said about an hour ago. They've got to be better with the penalties.
Well, here's where the gnashing of teeth comes in. Okay. Whatever the spread was, 17, 19, whatever it was, you make the 2 field goals, it's 20. Okay. Right. All right. So I understand where the gnashing of teeth comes from, because this is something I've talked about the last couple of years.
Yep.
You're going to get more and more complaints because of how the spread played out as opposed to how the game played out, because your own personal money is on the line.
Right.
That aside, when it does, look, we all see what the impact of field goal kicking is in the NFL. It's a huge part of the offense. You don't even have to get to the red zone and get points.
By the way, saw it yesterday as a Packers fan.
Yeah, exactly. So now you get to this point. One thing about a month into the season, it's a decision you didn't want to have to make, but
true.
How interesting moving forward is this decision that will impact whomever is doing the kicking, and if it's not Sander, how it might impact him.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. You're 4 games into the season, and you've got, there's no break right now. You have 2 games, and, UCLA is really struggling. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And they've got to play a 9 a.m. Pacific time game Saturday at In-State College. But the fact is, somebody needs to step up, whoever that may be, even if it's Xander. I don't know what's going to happen this week.
That's right.
But somebody's got to step up in the kicking game, because then you play at USC, then you play at Wisconsin, then you play Ohio State at home. Those 3 games, you're going to need a accurate kicker.
Yeah. And we'll find out how it plays out. That's the only thing anybody can do. James has touted Tyler Warren, and he has shown a lot in the first 4 games. What are your thoughts on his impact to the offense as a tight end, H-back, and basically all-around good guy?
Yeah, I mean, he is. And he's really – he's almost – when he takes the direct snap, he's almost taking Bo Prabula's role. Yeah. In a way. And but he's been very effective. And, the blocking, too. I mean, that's the one thing, right. You see it. I'm sure Jack sees it, obviously. But the blocking, he's a terrific blocker. And I think the whole tight end group, right now with him, Khalil Dinkins, and Luke Reynolds, I think they've done a really good job blocking, in addition to the offensive line. But, yeah, Tyler Warren's a really terrific player, and I would think he's got the best chance of any of the Penn State players right now, again, 8 games left in the season, to win a national award. I think he's got the best chance.
It's interesting. People always bring up the flow of the offense because suddenly Bo comes in the game or suddenly Tyler Warren comes in the game. And this, we can ask questions, but this will be a conversation piece for Rich and I right here. Penn State practices this way all the time, so that actually is the natural flow, because they don't just okay, let's practice the packages now. They actually okay, work it in here, work it in there. So it's actually, they're used to what it is because of practice. It's not just they do it in the game.
Yeah, no, I understand that. It's not something foreign to them. I'm one, and I know maybe this is unpopular. Maybe I don't know. I don't know how people stand on this. I don't like wasting a position. And what you're doing with wasting a position when you bring Bo in, you split your Aller out.
Right.
And I mean, come on. He's not catching a pass. I mean, they tried it once, and in the Peach Bowl, it didn't really work. And I don't like that. Maybe I'm a football purist. I don't like that in general. It's nothing to do with Penn State. I just like, hey, who's your quarterback? Okay, I want him on the field in his position. That's me. That doesn't mean you could if you want to bring Bo in and then take Drew out for a play, sure. Okay. I could see that. You want to, but I don't like, I know I didn't like it with, when Penn State did it with Trace McSorley and with Sean Clifford either. I guess I'm a football purist.
All right, so now this will be the first time that we get into a game with where now Penn State gets to see the new league, because 3 of the next 5 are against the new part of the league. UCLA, USC, right, and then Washington after that. After Wisconsin and Ohio State. How interested are you to see how those 4 teams out west react to all the travel they have to go through?
Well, yeah. I mean, UCLA. I don't know if we've talked about it on your show. UCLA is traveling the most miles of anybody in the country this year. They've already been to Hawaii and Louisiana to play LSU.
Yep.
They're coming to Penn State this week. and then 2 weeks later they're coming to Rutgers.
Yep.
I mean, schedule maker didn't do the Bruins any favor. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. USC hasn't played yet on the East Coast, but they played at Michigan. And we'll see what happens when Penn State goes out to USC. You know this, and James just mentioned it publicly for the first time, that Penn State is leaving next Thursday for Los Angeles. Right. And James, I guarantee you, did a very thorough research on that, talked to NFL teams, college teams, go down the list. So they're leaving Thursday. I'm interested to see how that works out. And, next year Penn State plays UCLA in the Rose Bowl Stadium. And, it's going to be interesting. But I think by the time UCLA gets done with its next 3 games at Penn State, I forget who they have home next week, and then at Rutgers, those guys are going to be weary. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. You can't do it based on this season, but I want to see after 3 years or so, what does it look like for them? In terms of the back and forth, what kind of wear and tear there happens to be. Because I know when it comes to teams going west, 14 of them have to go west. And of the 14, 8 have bye weeks, including Penn State the next week. The other 6 have home games. So that part was figured in. I don't know what was figured in for the 4 out west.
Yeah. So UCLA plays at Penn State, Minnesota home, at Rutgers, bye, at Nebraska, home against Iowa, at Washington, and then finishes with 2 home games. So, yeah, it's going to be fascinating. USC has to go to Minnesota this week, Maryland in 2 weeks, then Washington in another 2 weeks, then they're basically home the rest of the season. So, I think doesn't Oregon play at Michigan, or am I getting that wrong?
I know Oregon has to host Ohio State. That's next week. And then after that, I'm not sure.
Oregon's at Michigan on November 2nd, the same day of the Ohio State-Penn State game. Wait till I'm curious. You're talking about football.
Yeah.
How about basketball?
Basketball. Okay. They're all going to be two. When they comes out, I'm sure it's all 2-game road trips for those guys. That way, it's 5.
Right.
So I know Oregon and Washington both have to come here. I just didn't look and see the sequencing on them as to who they're playing besides Penn State. Penn State going out there, they're going to play on a Saturday at Pauley, and they're going to play on a Tuesday at the Galen Center. Penn State's going to go out there on a Friday. They're going to be there for 4 nights, essentially.
The Saturday Tuesday surprised me because in the Pac-12. They played Thursday, Saturday, or Friday, Sunday.
Yeah, and that's what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
But evidently, somebody on TV came up with a different idea.
Yeah, obviously. So Oregon is at Purdue, at Michigan, at Wisconsin, the rest of the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
My friend, it is always a pleasure. Thanks so much for your valuable time.
Steve, thank you. I appreciate it.